Damon Hayes bolted upright in his bunk, lungs heaving as if he'd just sprinted miles with a full combat pack on his back. The room felt stifling, shadows dancing across the walls each time a passing patrol vehicle's headlights swept through the narrow barracks window. Sweat clung to his shirt, and his pulse pounded in his ears like distant rotor blades. He stared at the dim ceiling, trying to piece together the fragments of that nightmare. In it, he'd been standing on a military airstrip, the tarmac shimmering under harsh floodlights. Sirens wailed, echoing a crescendo of panic, while red lights flashed across the fuselage of a massive cargo plane. He could taste the metallic tang of fear and diesel fumes in the air. Then came Helena's scream, sharp and desperate. He watched, powerless, as medics rushed her off on a stretcher, her face contorted in pain. A swirl of paramedics in white scrubs, and for the briefest moment, a tall, blonde-haired man glared straight at Damon with eyes so cold it made Damon's skin crawl. The man mouthed something words Damon couldn't catch, then vanished into the chaos. Still trembling, Damon wiped a hand down his face. Jesus, get a grip. He fumbled for his phone, tapping the screen to check the time. 1:47 a.m. A faint beep signaled no new messages. Outside, Fort Ironwood was cloaked in the hush of pre-dawn, though a dull hum of distant generators reminded him the base never truly slept. Shoving aside the thin blanket, he swung his feet onto the floor. The rough surface of the standard-issue rug grounded him, if only a bit. Helena had texted him hours ago about her last checkup, a concerning note that their baby might be coming early. He needed updates, some reassurance that she was safe. The restlessness in his chest flared anew. He dialed Helena's number, hand shaking just enough to notice. It rang longer than usual before a crackling connection cut in. "Hello?" came her voice, soft yet quivering. "Helena," he whispered, anxiety creeping into every syllable. I had to hear your voice. Are you okay?" A shaky breath rattled through the line. "Damon, the doctor says there's a risk of early labor. I'm trying not to panic." He pictured her alone in their small, off-base house, probably perched on the edge of their couch with a blanket draped around her. The mental image only tightened the worry in his chest. "I'm so sorry I'm not there," he said, guilt sweeping over him. "I'll talk to my CO first thing in the morning, try to get leave." Static interrupted. Helena's tone crackled as she said, "We both know it's not that easy. You do what you can." Her voice caught. "I need you home soon, Damon." The call dropped, leaving only a hollow beep. Damon stared at the screen, heart pounding. Something about that dream still gnawed at him. The shrieks, the swirling medics, and that mysterious blonde man. But the real threat at the moment was their baby coming too soon and Damon being half a country away. He jammed his phone into his pocket, deciding that sleep was out of the question. Stepping outside into the breezeway, he felt the night air slap his damp skin. A half-moon spilled pale light over Fort Ironwood's orderly rows of buildings. Gunmetal gray walls and the silhouettes of parked Humvees lined the main lot. Off to his left, a tired row of cinderblock offices housed the battalion staff. A soft whistle from behind made him turn. It was Lieutenant Gaines from the next room, wearing sweats and an expression that mixed fatigue and curiosity. "Everything all right, Captain Hayes?" Damon cleared his throat. "Not sure. Helena might go into labor early and I had a rough dream." Lieutenant Gaines gave a concerned nod. "Look, sir, I heard rumors we might deploy soon for a rapid response joint exercise in Germany. They might want you on that roster." Damon's stomach twisted. He'd just promised Helena he'd do everything possible to get home. And now this. "I'll see the CO in the morning," Damon muttered. "If there's any chance I can skip it." Gaines shrugged. "You know how the Army works. Orders are orders." An uneasy silence settled between them. Damon's mind raced. If official orders came through, he'd have no choice but to go. "I'll talk to the Major." "Thanks, Gaines." Inside his bunk again, Damon paced. The room felt claustrophobic, each step echoing. Should he call Helena back? The signal had been erratic at best. "I'll wait until daybreak." Just before dawn, he finally dozed on his bunk, uneasy thoughts swirling. At 0600, his phone blared with a text from HQ. His heart sank. Guess I'm not going home yet. He paused, eyes shutting briefly as he fought off the dread. Helena's last words echoed in his head. I need you home soon, Damon. He swallowed the worry and straightened his uniform. There was no outrunning this. If he had to ship out, it meant crossing an ocean right when Helena was at her most vulnerable. Stepping into the hallway, he caught a glimpse of the pink dawn creeping over the horizon. The hush of nighttime had given way to the rhythmic thud of soldiers' boots, the distant clang of a mess hall door. Life pressed on, unstoppable as always. Damon just prayed he could find a way to be there for his wife before it was too late. Damon sat outside Colonel Bradley's office, the corridor's fluorescent lighting making everything feel strangely sterile. Occasionally, a clerk scurried past carrying stacks of paperwork, or a young private hustled along with an urgent message. The Army never let anyone stand still for long. A headache pounded behind Damon's eyes. He'd barely slept after that nightmare and phone call. Now, the muted buzz of conversation from inside the office made him tap his foot in mounting anxiety. Keep it together, he told himself. Finally, the door swung open. Colonel Bradley, a tall man with flecks of gray at his temples, stepped into the hall and beckoned Damon in. "Morning, Captain," Bradley said, settling behind his desk. The window behind him framed Fort Ironwood's main training field. "Have a seat." Damon clicked his heels lightly, then sat. The colonel folded his hands. "I'll be direct. We've been tasked to send a small unit to Germany for this rapid response deployment. It's critical. Your name's on the list." Damon's throat went dry. "Sir, is there any chance?" "I understand your situation, Hayes, but the orders came from higher HQ. They specifically requested you among a handful of others for your operations expertise." Bradley exhaled. "Look, I'll do what I can to bring you back stateside as soon as the major tasks wrap up. Maybe you'll be home in under a month." A month. Damon thought of Helena. She might not have a month if her complications got worse. He nodded, voice tight. "Understood, sir." Bradley's tone softened a notch. "I've spoken to the medical staff. They're aware of your wife's condition. I give you my word. If anything urgent happens, I'll push to get you on the first flight home." It was a promise Damon could only hope the Army would keep. He left the office feeling both resigned and frustrated. Helena needed him now, but duty called. Orders are orders. Outside, the sun had fully risen, painting Fort Ironwood's buildings in a pale wash of gold. Damon squinted, spotting Lieutenant Gaines waiting near a Humvee. "Well?" Gaines asked, reading Damon's expression. Damon shrugged. "I'm going to Germany day after tomorrow." Gaines offered a sympathetic grimace. "If you need anything, sir rides to the airport, help packing." "Thanks," Damon said. "I'll manage. Right now, I just gotta call Helena." Back at the barracks, he dialed Helena, but it went to voicemail on the second ring. Probably at another doctor's appointment, he reasoned. Her short text from earlier read only, "Seeing OB specialist. Will call you." He tossed his phone on the bunk, mind whirling. He needed to secure his gear, file last-minute reports, and mentally prepare for an overseas mission. But the real storm seemed to be at home, where Helena faced possible preterm labor alone. Later that afternoon, Damon tried to bury himself in duties. He supervised a loadout drill, double-checking manifest lists for shipping crates bound for Germany. Stenciled on each container were unit numbers and black eagles. The hum of forklifts and the bark of orders formed the day's soundtrack. Yet all the while, he replayed Helena's voice in his head. "I need you." As evening crept in, he finally received her call. "Damon?" Helena's voice trembled. The doctor says I might need bed rest. They saw some issues on the ultrasound." Damon's stomach nodded. "Bed rest?" "Helena, if it's that serious, I don't want you to panic," she said quickly, though her tone betrayed her own fear. If you can't come home, I'll figure this out. Maybe a neighbor can help run errands." He inhaled, steadied his voice. "I'll talk to Colonel Bradley again. But the assignment is pressing." A pause. Then Helena whispered, "I understand. Just promise you'll come back the second you're able, okay?" "Promise." They lingered on the line, neither wanting to hang up. Finally, Helena sighed. "I'm exhausted. Let's talk tomorrow." "All right," Damon murmured. "Get some rest." When the call ended, he locked his phone and stared at the blank screen. Guilt pooled in his chest. The army was the life he'd chosen. He always knew it demanded sacrifice. But this was different. This felt like running headlong into a storm, leaving Helena behind just when she needed him most. He stuffed his phone in his pocket and headed outside, stepping into the hushed twilight. In 2 days, he'd be on a flight to Germany. He could only hope fate, or some modicum of luck, would let him return before their child arrived, or before anything worse happened. The airfield at Fort Ironwood was a controlled frenzy. Cargo trucks rumbled across the tarmac, offloading crates of rations and equipment. Soldiers hoisted duffel bags onto pallets bound for the massive C-17 that loomed under the overcast sky. Damon Hayes wove through the organized chaos, mentally listing everything he still had to do. He'd barely had time to breathe since receiving the orders. 48 hours had flashed by in a blur of final briefings and packing. Helena's updates were spotty. She mostly texted about trying to follow doctor's orders, staying off her feet. The sense of helplessness gnawed at Damon, but the mission loomed. Lieutenant Gaines jogged over, panting. "Sir, the cargo master wants to verify the weapons cases. Could you take a look?" "Sure." Damon followed him to a row of olive green containers. He checked the paperwork, ensuring each serial number matched. Overhead, dark clouds threatened rain, and a stiff breeze whipped at the edges of his uniform jacket. As he finished, his phone buzzed. Quickly, he ducked behind the cargo and answered. "Damon," Helena's voice came through, sounding fragile. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry if I've been distant. This bed rest is making me anxious." He pressed a hand against the cold metal container. "Helena, you don't have to apologize. I'm the one leaving you alone with all this." She gave a half-laugh that turned into a sigh. "It's not your fault. Just come home soon, okay?" A wave of emotion surged in his chest. "I promise. Stay strong." They ended the call. Damon exhaled, turning to see Gaines watching him quietly. The younger officer offered a small nod as if in understanding. Within the hour, Damon and the selected group of soldiers stood assembled on the tarmac for a quick send-off from Colonel Bradley. The colonel kept it short, reminding them of the importance of the rapid response exercise, the joint operations with NATO allies, and how vital each of their roles was. Damon heard the words, but felt them only in a distant sense. Soon, the engines of the C-17 roared to life. Damon climbed the ramp with his gear slung over his shoulder, heart pounding. The interior was all utilitarian, rows of netted jump seats, cargo strapped down the center. He found a spot next to Gaines. They exchanged glances, both looked tired, but resolute. The ramp closed, sealing them in dim fluorescent light. Damon's last glimpse of Fort Ironwood was through a small side hatch, gray sky, fading daylight, a line of saluting officers. As the plane taxied, Damon's ears filled with the thunder of turbines. He closed his eyes, picturing Helena's face. Please let everything be okay. The flight lasted hours, with most on board trying to catch sleep or flipping through mission dossiers. Damon dozed fitfully, again trapped in that haunting dream. The runway, the screaming, Helena in agony. This time it felt even more vivid. He snapped awake with a jolt of adrenaline, heart hammering. Gaines glanced over. "Nightmare again, sir?" Damon just nodded, swallowing hard. He thought about telling Gaines the details, about the ominous presence of that blonde-haired figure. But he shook it off, deciding it was just anxiety playing tricks. By the time they landed in Germany, the local time was early morning. Damp air greeted them, cold enough to make Damon's breath puff white. Army transport vans waited to shuttle the group to a temporary base a couple of miles from the airstrip. The place was half familiar. Damon had trained in Germany once before, but not under these circumstances. The driver of their van, a talkative sergeant, welcomed them to a small installation dotted with corrugated metal hangars and a cluster of beige administrative buildings. Damon gazed out at the foreign signs and barbed wire fences, the skies threatening drizzling rain. He made a silent vow. "I'll get in, get the job done fast, and get back to Helena." Nothing mattered more. A day into the training exercise, Damon barely had a moment to check his phone. The schedule was punishing. Readiness drills at dawn, coordination meetings with Allied officers, then night operations planning. Jet lag lingered like a dull headache, but there was no room for complaints. By late afternoon, he finally got a text from Helena. Doctor says 2 more weeks of bed rest minimum. Baby's heartbeat stable, but they're monitoring me closely. Relief flooded him, though worry still coiled in his gut. At least it's not worse, he told himself. He typed a quick reply. I'll try to come home soon. Miss you. Then shoved the phone into his pocket and joined a briefing in a cramped operations tent. Laminated maps covered the walls. An overhead projector cast a scenario simulation. Damon forced himself to focus on the details, troop movements, supply lines, projected times, but every so often, his mind drifted to Helena's condition. That night, as Damon walked back to his assigned barracks, his phone buzzed again. The ID showed Helena. He hurried to pick up. Helena? She sounded surprisingly calm. I'm all right, Damon. Just tired. Listen, any update on your schedule? The OB nurse warned me that if anything changes drastically, I might need an emergency section. His pulse skipped. Section? Are they sure? Christ, not certain yet. They're just preparing me in case, she explained quickly. I don't want to scare you, but I also don't want to hide anything. Damon swallowed, throat tight. I get it. I wish I could be there. A silence. Then Helena murmured, I'm trying to stay positive. Just do your job, be safe, and come home to me. When they hung up, Damon's stomach roiled with tension. He decided to push harder to finish the tasks assigned. Maybe if he impressed upon his superiors how quickly they could wrap up his segment of the training, he could catch an earlier flight back. But fate had other plans. The next morning, Damon received word that an unexpected extension was requested from the NATO side, something about extra joint drills. Damon gritted his teeth. I can't be stuck here indefinitely. Just before noon, a staff sergeant knocked on Damon's door. Sir, the colonel wants you at the main gate. There's an urgent run to the airport, some logistic glitch. We need an ops officer's signature or it won't clear. Damon grabbed his jacket and followed the sergeant to a dusty Humvee. The drive was a good 30 minutes. He spent most of it checking his phone, anxious for any new text from Helena. Halfway there, his phone buzzed once more. Unknown caller. He answered, expecting a random logistics contact. Instead, Helena's panicked voice exploded over the line. Damon! They think I'm going into labor earlier than expected. I'm heading to the hospital right now. His heart seized. Helena, oh God, try to stay calm, okay? I'll talk to the colonel. We'll get me on a plane. There's no time, she gasped, clearly in distress. I needed to hear your voice. A lump lodged in his throat as the Humvee rattled across uneven roads. I'm with you, he whispered. Focus on breathing. Do what the doctors say. I'll get there. The line hissed with static, and the call dropped. Damon shouted in frustration. The sergeant glanced over, concerned. Everything okay, sir? Damon forced a bitter laugh. No, I need to get home. They arrived at the airport checkpoint, a small military airstrip. Damon sprang out, mind racing. He was supposed to sign off on supply documents, but all he could think about was Helena, possibly in labor right now. A few minutes later, as Damon completed the paperwork, a loud commotion erupted behind him. The flash of headlights, a frantic shout, someone yelled in German about a vehicle on the runway. The cargo truck swerved, screeching brakes. Damon barely turned in time to see the truck veer and slam into the side barrier. The metal barrier twisted, and the impact jostled Damon off his feet. Pain flared at his temple as he hit the pavement. His vision blurred. The last thing he recalled was the sickening crunch of steel, the searing ring in his ears, and a single thought. Helena. Then everything went black. Damon Hayes blinked against the bright fluorescent lights overhead, the sterile scent of disinfectant stinging his nostrils. He lay in a hospital bed in Germany's military medical center, his right shoulder aching from what felt like a dislocation, and his head pounding as though someone had taken a hammer to it. A dull beep from the heart monitor droned in the background, matching the slow throb of his pulse. A young nurse, Specialist Howard, stood at the foot of the bed, her expression gentle but professional. Captain Hayes, she said quietly, good to see you awake again. You've been in and out for the past day. Damon forced a nod, trying to gather his scattered thoughts. The crash, the cargo truck. Then, like a brutal wave, the memory of Helena's phone call crashed back, the baby gone. He swallowed hard, voice hoarse. Specialist, can you hand me my phone? Howard hesitated before retrieving the device from the bedside table. "You might want to speak to the doctor first, sir, and Colonel Bradley has been asking about you, too." Damon's throat tightened. I need to call my wife. Please." She gently placed the phone in his hand and offered a faint smile. "I'll give you a few minutes, but the doctor will be in soon." As the nurse left, Damon stared at the black screen, dreading what he might or might not find. He powered it on to see a single text from Helena. "I'm so sorry, I can't talk right now." A swirl of dread and heartbreak knotted in his stomach. Her last words over the phone echoed in his mind. "Con chung ta kong kwa koi." He pressed the call icon, but it rang straight to voicemail. Gritting his teeth, he tried again, no answer. The beep of the heart monitor quickened. Damon set the phone aside, blinking back the sting in his eyes. "It's real," he thought numbly. "Our baby girl is gone." Minutes later, a middle-aged doctor in an army uniform strode in, silver hair cropped close. "Captain Hayes, I'm Major Sullivan. Good to see you conscious." He checked the chart, then met Damon's gaze. "You sustained a mild concussion, a dislocated shoulder, and some bruised ribs in that accident. We've stabilized you, but you'll need further recovery." Damon cleared his throat, voice brittle. "How soon can I get back to the States?" Sullivan exhaled slowly. "We'll keep you here for at least another week to monitor your head injury. After that, if you're cleared to fly, the Army can arrange transport. Colonel Bradley is coordinating with the medevac staff." A spike of frustration flared inside Damon. Every additional day in Germany felt like a fresh knife twisting in his chest. His baby was dead. He should be with Helena, somehow comforting her, even as he reeled from the shock himself. But the Army protocols marched on, indifferent to his grief. That evening, Colonel Bradley arrived, removing his cap as he entered the small hospital room. "Hayes," he greeted, voice heavy with concern. "Glad to see you awake. I spoke to your wife briefly and told her you'd pull through. She asked me to pass along that she's with family." Damon's eyes hardened at the mention of Helena's name. "I appreciate the update, sir," he managed. Bradley stepped closer, resting a hand on the foot of the bed. "I'm sorry about your loss. Truly. I've requested you be transferred stateside as soon as the docs allow. In the meantime, focus on getting better." Damon's throat worked, but words failed him. Instead, he nodded. For the next few days, the hospital's routine swallowed him nurses changing IV drips, physical therapy for his shoulder, the constant beep of vitals monitors. Each night, Damon lay awake, staring at the blank ceiling, haunted by the same image. Helena alone in a dark hospital corridor, tears rolling down her cheeks, a silent bundle in her arms that never drew breath. One late afternoon, he mustered the strength to call Helena again. This time, she picked up. Her voice trembled as if she'd been crying recently. "Damon," she said softly. I'm so sorry." He shut his eyes. "Helena, are you okay? Where are you?" My parents took me in for a bit, so I'm not alone. The doctor said the baby there was a problem with the umbilical cord. Nothing they could do." Her voice cracked. Damon gripped the phone, anger warring with grief. "I should be there with you." She made a small, sobbing sound. "It's all such a nightmare. I don't know what to do." Damon inhaled shakily. "We'll figure it out. Let me get stateside, then we can—" Suddenly, Helena's voice wavered. "I can't talk more now. I'm sorry. I just can't—" The call ended in a choked hush. Damon pressed the phone to his forehead, tears pricking the corners of his eyes. He felt utterly powerless, confined to a foreign hospital bed, unable to mend what was shattered or to mourn properly beside the woman he loved, and so he waited, each day a gray blur. The staff eventually announced he was stable enough to travel. Within 48 hours, Damon found himself strapped into a medevac flight, heading back across the Atlantic with a battered body, a broken heart, and no idea how to face the crater of loss that awaited him at Fort Ironwood. Fort Ironwood greeted Damon with a bleak winter sky and a light drizzle that soaked through his jacket. He stepped onto the tarmac, wincing as his ribs protested the strain of carrying a small duffel bag. An Army transport van waited, driven by Sergeant Velasquez, a man Damon had met briefly before heading to Germany. "Welcome home, sir," Velasquez said quietly, eyes showing a flicker of sympathy. Let's get you back to the base clinic for a check-in, then you can head to your quarters." Damon nodded, too exhausted to muster any real response. On the drive, the rain tapped steadily on the van's roof, matching Damon's mood. He gazed at the passing buildings' rows of dull, cinder-block barracks, the faint glint of barbed wire along the perimeter fence. Usually, returning to a familiar post gave him a sense of comfort. This time, it felt hollow. By the time he reached the on-post medical facility for a routine follow-up, Damon was ready to collapse. A brisk army physician named Captain Rollins confirmed the German medical records, then handed him instructions: limited duty for the next few weeks, plus an official recommendation for psychological support if needed. He forced a thin smile. "I'll keep that in mind," he muttered, though in truth, his grief weighed heavily on him. Helena was nowhere to be seen. She'd texted him that morning saying she was at a temporary rental house outside Fort Ironwood, not feeling up to base housing. Damon had offered to pick her up or bring her groceries, but she kept insisting she was fine, or that a neighbor helped. It was as if she were holding him at arm's length. That first night, Damon found himself in the modest married quarters they once shared, although Helena wasn't there anymore. The living room looked oddly empty, no sign of her usual decorative pillows or scented candles. A bare shelf stood where Helena's pregnancy books once lined the space. He sank onto the couch, feeling a fresh wave of sorrow. The hush of the room pressed in, reminding him how drastically life had shifted. Their baby's tiny clothes and crib things they once excitedly discussed were gone. The only sound was the ticking of a clock on the wall. Eventually, Helena arrived, soft footsteps on the threshold. She looked pale under the overhead light, her eyes rimmed red. Damon stood, uncertain how to greet her. The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Hey," she said, voice subdued. Her gaze flicked to the sling supporting Damon's still sore shoulder. How are you feeling?" "Better," he replied, trying not to focus on the swirl of conflicting emotions within him. Relief at seeing her alive, anger that he'd been absent, heartbreak over their loss. "I'm cleared for light duty. He hesitated. "How about you?" Helena hugged her arms around herself as if warding off a chill. "Just numb," she answered. "I'm sorry I wasn't here earlier, but staying in the same house felt—" She broke off, blinking quickly. A coil of tension twisted in Damon's chest. "It's okay. We can figure out where to go from here," he said, though the words felt hollow. They stood there in an awkward standoff. Finally, Helena sank onto the chair. "The doctors said it was a rare cord accident. We did everything we could." She paused, tears threatening to spill. "I keep thinking maybe if you'd been here or I'd gone to the hospital sooner." Damon approached, wanting to console her, but something held him back. A flicker of guilt, or perhaps a sense that she was holding on to secrets he couldn't name yet. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "It wasn't your fault," he said softly. "We can't blame ourselves." She nodded but didn't lean into his touch. Instead, she slid away, wiping her eyes. "Can we just not talk about it anymore tonight?" His jaw tightened. "Yeah, sure." They lapsed into silence. Helena eventually moved to the spare bedroom, leaving Damon alone in the living room with the ghost of what might have been. The hush was suffocating, like the living space itself had lost its warmth. Over the following days, Damon attempted small gestures picking up groceries, offering to drive Helena to any follow-up doctor visits, but she often refused. When she did accept, her conversation remained distant, guarded. At times, Damon caught her gazing at a sealed envelope or a medical file with an unreadable expression. She'd tuck it away if he got too close. Grief was one thing, but the sense of a growing wall between them was another. Late one night, after Helena had gone to sleep in the other room, Damon lay awake, staring at the ceiling. "We should be mourning together," he thought. "Why does it feel like she's miles away?" He had no answers, only the chilly emptiness of a home that no longer felt like home at all. Spring crept over Fort Ironwood in hesitant steps, melting the last traces of winter frost from the parade ground. Damon stood before a mirror in the bedroom, adjusting the collar of his newly tailored uniform. A single gold oak leaf now adorned his rank insignia, Major Hayes. The official ceremony was scheduled in less than an hour. He felt an odd swirl of pride and sadness. This promotion was something he'd worked toward, yet it arrived at a time when his personal life was in fragments. He glanced over his shoulder, half hoping Helena would pop in with a supportive smile. But she was still out in the kitchen, quietly sipping tea as she scrolled her phone. Since his return from Germany, they'd functioned more like polite roommates than a married couple. They spoke in soft voices, rarely touching. Damon kept telling himself they just needed time to heal from the baby's loss. Maybe this promotion ceremony would serve as a small bright spot, a chance to celebrate something, no matter how forced it felt. He stepped into the living room. Helena glanced up. "You look sharp," she remarked, her tone distant but civil. "Thanks," he replied. "Are you still coming to the ceremony?" She hesitated, then set down her tea. "Yes, I'll be there." They arrived at the base auditorium, where a modest group of officers and staff had gathered. Colonel Bradley delivered a succinct speech about Damon's dedication and leadership. Applause punctuated the colonel's final words, and a formal pinning ritual followed. Helena stood off to the side, offering a polite clap. Damon caught her eye, managing a quick, grateful smile. He couldn't quite read her expression. Afterward, a few of Damon's fellow officers, like Lieutenant Gaines, congratulated him. They chatted about future postings, the next set of responsibilities. Damon realized with a jolt that he might be transferred soon, likely to a more strategic position stateside or overseas. His gaze flicked to Helena, who was fiddling with the hem of her blouse, almost as if she dreaded the possibility of moving again. That evening, a small celebratory dinner was held at the Officers' Club. Soft jazz music played, mingling with the clink of silverware and low conversation. Helena accompanied Damon, but sat quietly through most of it, smiling politely when anyone congratulated them. Midway through the meal, Colonel Bradley leaned in from across the table. "Major Hayes," he said, the new rank rolling off his tongue with a faint grin. "I know it's short notice, but we've got an opportunity for you at Fort Valiant in Europe. The official request for a mid-level strategic officer came through this morning." Damon felt Helena stiffen beside him. "Fort Valiant, sir," he echoed, setting down his fork. "That's overseas again." Bradley nodded. "A joint training initiative, mostly administrative. You wouldn't be out in the field. The assignment's for a year, possibly extended." He lowered his voice. "You can think it over, of course, but it's a solid career move." Damon forced a polite smile. "I appreciate it, sir. I'll discuss it with Helena." Bradley clapped him on the shoulder. "No rush. Just keep me posted." On the drive home, a brittle silence filled the car. Finally, Helena spoke, her voice low. "Another overseas posting? Are you considering it?" Damon gripped the steering wheel. "It's not immediate, just an offer. But it might be good for us, you know? A change of scenery. Maybe we can leave some of this pain behind." She stared out the window, lights from base housing reflecting in her eyes. "Or maybe we just bury it and hope it doesn't follow," she murmured. Damon's chest tightened. He hated the wedge between them. "Look, we don't have to decide right away, but at least think about it." Helena exhaled. "Fine." They reached home, and the conversation ended with Helena retreating to the guest bedroom. Damon sat alone in the living room, tie loosened, promotion certificate on the coffee table. He stared at it, wondering how a moment that should feel triumphant could ring so hollow. Over the next week, Helena seemed more subdued. Occasionally, Damon spotted her looking at brochures for European travel or reading up on Fort Valiant's location. He tried to feel optimistic. Maybe this was a sign she'd come around to the idea. One afternoon, she spoke up while they were cleaning up after lunch. "If we do go," she said, not meeting his eyes, "I want to do more than just stay in quarters. Maybe volunteer somewhere. Keep busy." Damon set down the dish towel, heart lifting slightly. "Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you need to feel comfortable." She gave him a small nod, then disappeared into the bedroom. The door closed softly behind her. An uneasy relief rippled through Damon. They weren't exactly mending their broken pieces, but at least it felt like they were moving in some direction, any direction. And if Helena found a spark of hope across the ocean, Maybe that was better than staying here, haunted by everything they'd lost. The flight to Europe was surprisingly smooth this time around. Damon and Helena sat side by side, though a quiet gulf stretched between them for most of the journey. Helena flipped through a glossy magazine about Heidelberg, occasionally highlighting museums and scenic walking paths. Damon watched her from the corner of his eye, wishing he knew how to bridge the emotional distance. Upon arrival at Fort Valiant, they stepped off the transport bus into crisp spring air. Stone buildings with ivy climbing the walls flanked the cobblestone paths, a stark contrast to Fort Ironwood's concrete sprawl. Helena briefly paused to take in the old-world architecture. "This place is pretty," she admitted, a note of hesitant wonder in her voice. Damon nodded, adjusting his duffel. "It has its charm. Let's see if they gave us decent quarters." Their assigned on-base housing turned out to be a modest two-bedroom apartment in an older section that overlooked a small courtyard garden. Helena offered a tight smile as they walked through the room's freshly painted walls, basic furniture, windows that let in soft, golden European light. It felt more welcoming than their last place, yet Damon sensed Helena's tension flickering just below the surface. He tried to lighten the mood. "We can pick out some local art, maybe. Brighten the place up." She shrugged. "Sure, if you want." That evening they ventured into the nearby town for dinner. Quaint, winding streets and a medieval clock tower loomed overhead. Candlelight flickered in the small cafe where they dined on roasted chicken and fresh bread. Helena seemed momentarily entranced by the old stone architecture, snapping a few photos with her phone. At one point, Damon reached for her hand across the table. She didn't pull away, but her fingers felt tense in his grip. "I'm glad we came," he said quietly. "It might be good for both of us. A fresh start." Helena offered the faintest smile. "I hope so. There's a lot I need to sort out." His gut twisted at the hint of something unspoken. She'd been cryptic ever since they lost the baby, sometimes clutching her phone like it held secrets she couldn't share. Maybe she's just coping, he told himself. Later that night, as they settled into bed, the open window let in a breeze carrying the scent of damp cobblestones and budding flowers. Damon drifted in and out of a light doze, the day's fatigue pulling him under. Until Helena cried out in her sleep. He jolted up, heart pounding. Helena thrashed, her face contorted with distress. "No, no, Ellis, please," she mumbled, tears leaking from beneath her closed lids. Damon froze. "Ellis, who the hell?" A cold sense of foreboding gripped him. "Helena," he whispered, gently shaking her shoulder. "Wake up! It's just a nightmare." She gasped awake, eyes wide, chest heaving. "Oh, Damon." She looked around, disoriented, then pressed her palms over her face. He flipped on the small bedside lamp, concern and a spike of jealousy warping his tone. "Who's Ellis?" Her cheeks went pale. Just someone from before." "Before what?" Damon pressed, tension creeping into his words. She shook her head, hair tumbling around her face. "It's nothing. Just a bad dream." He waited, heart thudding, but Helena only mumbled a vague apology and turned away, burying herself under the covers. Damon stared at her rigid back, mind reeling. Ellis. The name felt like a jagged wedge driving them further apart. The next morning brought them no closer to an explanation. Helena behaved as if the night terror never happened, speaking only about trivial plans like finding a local volunteer spot. Damon bit back his questions, sensing she wouldn't open up. 3 days later, a letter arrived in their mailbox, bearing a U.S. postmark. Helena retrieved it first. Damon entered the living room to find her standing rigid, eyes locked on the envelope as though it might explode. "Helena, you okay?" She startled, nearly dropping the letter. "Yes, it's nothing, just mail from home." He frowned, stepping closer. "From who? Your parents?" She shoved the envelope behind her, forcing a tight smile. "Damon, I'm tired. Let's not do this now, please." Then she brushed past him and retreated to the bedroom. Damon stood there, fists clenching at his sides. The secrecy weighed on him like a lead cloak. Her nightmares, this letter, the name Ellis, it all hinted at a truth she refused to share. And though Damon tried to trust her, tried to chalk it up to grief, a seed of doubt sprouted deep inside. He couldn't shake the sense that their tragedy hid a darker betrayal, lurking just beyond the edges of the life they were trying to rebuild. Damon Hayes gripped the steering wheel as he pulled into Fort Harris, the new post assigned to him after returning from Europe. The wide gates and orderly rows of evergreen trees gave the base a pristine look, though he couldn't shake the lingering exhaustion from the transatlantic flight and the tension simmering beside him. Helena West, technically still his wife, stared out the passenger window, her expression pensive. "I didn't realize Fort Harris would be so green," she murmured, watching a pair of soldiers jog along a paved path. "It's different from Ironwood." Damon nodded, a polite, distant hum. Their relationship had grown increasingly strained over the last few months overseas, overshadowed by the unspoken ghosts of their lost child and whatever secrets Helena clung to. He parked near the base housing office, stepping out to finalize paperwork for the duplex they'd been allotted. A short while later, they arrived at the small, single-story building. Damon noted the neat lawn, the empty driveway next door. The smell of damp pine hung in the cool air. "Welcome to Fort Harris," an older civilian clerk greeted them, handing over keys. "Your household goods arrived from storage this morning. They're stacked in the living room." Inside, the place was bare except for cardboard boxes piled high. Helena tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, scanning the labeled sides. Kitchen, bedroom, linens. Then Damon spotted a worn wooden crate marked in black marker. "Helena's documents and memories." He frowned. "Hey, I've never seen that one before. Did you keep extra stuff in Germany?" Helena glanced over, eyes darting away. "Not sure. Probably old files or letters from my family." She cleared her throat. "I'm going to see if the utilities are on." Without further explanation, she walked briskly down the hallway. A twinge of suspicion flickered in Damon's gut. Ever since her odd nightmares in Heidelberg and the cryptic letters she'd received, he'd sensed she was hiding something bigger. With Helena out of sight, he set aside a couple of boxes, exposing the wooden crate. Carefully, he pried it open. Inside, he found a small stack of manila folders, a tangle of worn notebooks, and a sealed envelope. On top of it all lay an official-looking document. Damon slid it free, his breath catching when he read the header. Certificate of live birth. The name on it, Belle West. Date of birth weight. Length mother. Helena West father. Unknown. His pulse hammered. A baby girl? Born alive? He shook his head, mind reeling. They had lost their daughter in Germany, didn't they? With trembling hands, he flipped through the pages. Next came adoption papers with phrases like permanent relinquishment of parental rights and adoptive family named withheld for confidentiality. He sat down hard on the edge of a nearby box, a cold sweat breaking out across his forehead. That was the moment Helena reappeared in the doorway, her face blanching as she noticed what he held. She let out a sharp gasp. "Damon, what are you doing?" He stared up at her, eyes blazing. "Tell me this isn't real." He waved the birth certificate. "Belle West? You told me our baby she died." Helena's hands shook. You had no right to go through my things," she stammered. "And you had no right to lie." He fired back, voice cracking with both rage and heartbreak. "All these months you said she was gone, but according to this, she was alive and you gave her away." Helena's gaze dropped to the floor. For a split second, Damon thought she might confess everything, but her expression hardened. I can't talk about it right now." She spun and hurried down the hall. Damon squeezed the documents, head pounding. Part of him wanted to chase her, demand answers. Another part was too stunned to move. Why would she do this? A swirl of memories slammed into him. Helena's tears, her shifting excuses, the hidden mail. Our child was never dead? In the tense silence, he heard a faint drip from the kitchen sink and the muffled hum of a nearby base patrol jeep outside. The gap between them, which had once felt like grief, now felt like a chasm of betrayal. He gently placed the papers back in the box, though the words echoed in his mind like a hollow drumbeat. Father unknown. That evening, Damon paced their cramped living room, the overhead light casting harsh shadows on the half-unpacked boxes. Helena sat on the sofa, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. A stack of documents sat between them on the coffee table, the same ones Damon had unearthed earlier. "You owe me an explanation," Damon said, tone rigid. Our child, Belle? You never said a word. You let me believe she died." Helena's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Damon, there was no easy way to tell you." She swallowed, her voice trembling. "You were overseas. Everything happened so fast. The baby, I didn't know if she was yours or not." Damon's breath caught in his throat. "What do you mean, not mine? We were married for years." Despite his anger, a dark corner of his mind recalled the name Ellis, whispered in her sleep. Could that man be Belle's father? Helena ran a shaky hand across her forehead. "When I realized the baby could be someone else's, I panicked. I arranged the adoption. I thought it would be better for everyone if you never knew." "That's insane," he hissed, chest tight. "So instead you staged a lie about losing her? Let me grieve a daughter you claimed was stillborn." She rose abruptly, posture stiff. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I was confused, terrified. You have no idea what it felt like, carrying a child that might not be yours." Damon slammed a fist onto the coffee table, rattling the documents. "Damn it, Helena, you should have trusted me enough to tell the truth. Did you think you could bury this forever? Did you honestly think I'd never find out?" Her gaze flicked to the wooden crate. "I never intended for you to see those papers. I kept them to remind myself." Her voice cracked. He breathed hard, tears of betrayal threatening to rise. "Remind yourself of what? That you gave away a life we created? Or that you cheated and didn't even know the father?" She looked away. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the droning hum of the base's night security patrol in the distance. Damon rubbed his temple, half afraid he might explode if he spoke again. Finally, Helena's phone buzzed on the coffee table, startling them both. She snatched it up, scanning the screen. Damon caught a glimpse of a text from an unknown number. She quickly locked the phone. "Who keeps texting you?" he demanded. "Is it him, this Ellis person you talked about in your sleep?" Helena's lips parted, but no sound emerged. Her eyes filled with panic. "Stop prying," she whispered, voice trembling. "It has nothing to do with you." Damon inhaled sharply. "You can't just brush me off, not after everything you've done." Her shoulders trembled. "I need space, Damon. If you can't respect that, I'll leave." She glanced around at the boxes, her expression etched with desperation. He crossed his arms, heart pounding. "Maybe you should go, because I can't live in the same space with these lies." A stunned look crossed her face, but instead of protesting, she merely walked into the bedroom, grabbed a hastily stuffed duffel bag, and headed toward the door. Damon trailed her, a surreal ache in his chest. As she opened the door, a gust of chilly air rushed in. She paused, eyes brimming with emotion. "I'm sorry," she whispered, then disappeared into the night, leaving Damon standing alone in the half-lit hallway. For a moment he just stared at the empty doorway. A swirl of conflicting feelings roiled inside him: rage, sorrow, betrayal. The single lamp in the living room flickered, casting shadows across the adoption papers. He sank onto the sofa, breathing unsteadily. Their marriage had been on shaky ground since losing the baby, except now, he knew the baby wasn't lost at all. Belle is out there, alive. And Helena had run again, taking every real answer with her. After a stretch of paralyzing silence, Damon forced himself upright. He rummaged through the rest of the crate, searching for any clue to Belle's whereabouts. The adoption forms were incomplete, some paragraphs redacted to hide the adoptive parents' identities. A swirl of frustration burned in his gut. Gazing at the single lamp's glow, Damon clutched the birth certificate in one hand. He couldn't fathom how Helena had orchestrated all this alone. But he was sure of one thing: I won't stop until I figure out the truth. 3 days after Helena's abrupt departure, Damon Hayes found himself in downtown Seattle, parked outside a discreet building housing a private DNA testing lab. A neon sign reading Genexus Lab flickered in the large window. He climbed out of his car, tension radiating through every muscle. He'd come armed with a small plastic bag containing a fragile piece of a baby's pacifier he'd discovered in Helena's crate, likely used by Belle during her first days of life. He also carried a few strands of Helena's hair from an old hairbrush, plus a sample of his own DNA via a cheek swab kit. Damon had no idea if the pacifier sample would still carry the child's genetic material, but it was the only clue he had. Inside, the cool fluorescent lighting and chemical-clean smell reminded him of a military hospital. A receptionist gave him a polite, businesslike nod. "Can I help you, sir?" "Yes, I called earlier," Damon said, voice steady despite his nerves. "Major Hayes. I have samples to be tested for familial relationships." A short while later, a lab technician named Margie greeted him, a petite woman in a white coat with sharp, observant eyes. "You're looking to establish paternity?" she asked, leading him into a small interview room. Damon hesitated, then sighed. "Actually, I need to confirm if a certain child is biologically related to me or not. I also have a known maternal sample, my wife's. Ex-wife, maybe," he muttered, wincing at the word. "And then there's me. The child sample as well, it's questionable, I know," he added, holding up the pacifier. Margie studied his anxious expression. "We'll do our best. Pacifiers can carry trace DNA from saliva, but it depends on storage conditions. Let's get everything labeled." They worked methodically, Margie's gloved hands collecting the materials. She explained the process, how they'd run polymerase chain reaction tests to see if any partial match existed among the 3 samples. "Give us about a week, maybe 2 for results," she said. Damon exhaled, shoulders slumping in relief. "Thank you." Before leaving, he caught Margie's concerned glance. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. He forced a nod, not trusting his voice. In truth, the weight of betrayal, confusion, and heartbreak was almost suffocating. He walked out into the drizzling Seattle afternoon, the city's skyline blurred by gray clouds. As he drove back to Fort Harris, he replayed Helena's frantic words. "I didn't know if she was yours or not." If the DNA test confirmed the baby was Damon's, Helena's deception would seem even crueler. If it wasn't, the thought stabbed him with a different kind of pain. Days passed in a haze. Damon threw himself into base tasks, completing administrative work for his new unit. He avoided personal conversations with colleagues, claiming the usual post-PCS chaos. At night, the empty living room haunted him, the half-unpacked boxes a testament to Helena's hasty exit. By the 7th day, Damon was on edge, glancing at his phone every hour. On the 8th, Margie's number flashed across the screen during a mid-morning briefing. He stepped out of the office and answered quietly. "Major Hayes, we've got your results." He could hardly breathe. "And, please come in. It's best we explain in person." 30 minutes later, Damon sat across from Margie, a typed report in front of him. She spoke gently. "We successfully extracted partial DNA from the pacifier, cross-referenced it with your sample and your wife's. The child's DNA is consistent with Helena West's lineage." She paused, lips pressing together. "But not yours." All the blood seemed to drain from Damon's face. He swallowed. "You're absolutely sure?" Margie nodded, sadness in her eyes. "Yes, sir. The markers show 0 paternal match. The baby has no genetic relation to you." Damon's throat clenched, a swirl of anger, grief, and a twisted sense of relief. So Belle wasn't his child. Helena had known, or at least suspected. Suddenly everything made sense. Her secrecy, her terror, the quiet guilt. She cheated, got pregnant, and lied to cover it. "Thank you," Damon managed, voice raw. Outside, the bright midday sun felt harsh and mocking. Damon leaned against his car, staring at the lab sign. A frantic wave of emotion battered him. "We never had a daughter, not biologically. Yet I mourned her as if she was mine, and Helena had orchestrated the entire charade. Did she truly do it to protect him or to hide her own infidelity?" He drove back to the base in a numb daze. That evening he sat alone in the silent duplex. His gaze fell on the folded adoption papers. Belle existed, a real child who shared Helena's genes and belonged to some unknown father. She might not be mine, but Helena took away any choice I had to accept her or not. Bitterness took root in Damon's heart. The illusions were shattered. He felt unmoored, uncertain if he was angrier about the affair or the months of grieving a baby who wasn't even his. Finally, he took out his phone and searched for a divorce attorney. Enough was enough. A brisk autumn wind rustled the American flag outside the county courthouse as Damon Hayes stepped onto the stone steps, his breath visible in the chill morning air. People bustled around him, attorneys in suits, couples seeking marriage licenses, families finalizing adoptions. But Damon's focus lay on the crisp papers in his hand, his divorce decree. He hadn't seen Helena since she vanished that night, and she hadn't bothered to appear in person for the proceedings. Her lawyer had submitted minimal documentation, essentially conceding Damon's evidence of her adultery and false claims about the stillborn child. The judge, looking weary behind thick glasses, had granted the dissolution quickly. Now it was official. Damon was a single man, set adrift from the woman he once believed he'd grow old with. The swirl of emotions, anger, betrayal, a pang of sorrow mingled in his chest. He trudged down the courthouse steps, exhaling a slow breath. A voice called his name. "Major Hayes?" He turned to see a short, gray-haired woman, Harriet Lynn, who'd recently joined the legal office at Fort Harris as a civilian notary. She'd witnessed some of Damon's paperwork. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she offered, her tone kind but professional. "These situations are never easy." Damon mustered a faint smile. "Thanks, Miss Lynn. Guess I'm just glad it's over." She nodded sympathetically, then hurried on her way. Damon walked to his car, sank into the driver's seat, and stared blankly at the tinted windshield for a good minute. Helena's name, gone from mind. Just like that. His mind flickered back to how excited they once were about the baby, how they debated nursery colors and strollers, all of it built on quicksand. He set the divorce decree on the passenger seat, a dull ache gnawing at him. Where is she now? The question rattled around his mind. The answer almost didn't matter. She'd decided to vanish rather than face him. His phone still had no missed calls from her. At Fort Harris, the day carried on as if nothing had changed. Damon stopped by his new commander's office, Major Ford, to confirm a training schedule. Ford, a direct yet not unkind man, noticed Damon's strained expression. "You all right, Major?" Damon swallowed, nodding stiffly. "Yeah, just finalized some personal issues." Ford gave a thoughtful incline of his head. "Understood. Well, take care of yourself. We rely on you to keep the unit running smoothly." The words echoed in Damon's mind. He'd always poured himself into the Army, and now it was all he had. After the day's obligations, he returned to the duplex that no longer felt like a home. Boxes of Helena's belongings were gone, leaving empty patches on the walls. He felt unmoored, haunted by the memory of opening that fateful crate and discovering the truth about Belle. As evening settled, he tried to distract himself with simple chores, organizing the kitchen, vacuuming the living room. But each task reminded him of Helena's absence. The vacuum roared, drowning out the quiet, but not the sharp pang of resentment in his heart. Eventually, exhaustion took over. He collapsed on the couch. The hush enveloped him, broken only by the ticking of a clock. In the dim lamplight, his gaze drifted to the final divorce decree again. The last line read something about dissolution of marriage, official and cold, a piece of paper that closed the door on a painful chapter. He thought of Belle, that little girl who was out there somewhere, unknowingly the centerpiece of a betrayal. Not my daughter, yet I grieved her. The sting was raw, but a tiny flicker of curiosity sparked within him. She's innocent in all this. If Helena had given her up, who had her now? Did they love her? A knock on the door jolted him from his thoughts. Expecting maybe a neighbor or a random base official, he opened it to find Lieutenant Gaines from his old unit, passing through on temporary assignment. Gaines offered a friendly smile. "Heard you were here. Mind if I come in?" Damon stepped aside, half relieved to see a familiar face. Gaines surveyed the half-empty living room. "Looks like you've been through the ringer, sir." "Yeah, you could say that." Damon motioned him in, then retrieved 2 sodas from the fridge. He wasn't up for alcohol tonight. They sat, exchanging small talk about Fort Ironwood, old colleagues. Eventually, Gaines gave Damon a knowing look. "I heard rumors about your divorce." "Sorry." Damon exhaled, swirling the soda can in his hand. "It's complicated, but it's done." "Got any plans now?" Damon stared at the blank TV screen. "Just keep doing my job. Start over, I guess." Gaines patted his shoulder, compassion in his voice. "You'll get through it, Major. He stood to leave, then paused at the doorway. "If you ever need someone to talk to, call me." Left alone again, Damon shut the door, leaning against it for a moment. The sadness weighed on him, but so did an odd sense of finality. The marriage was over, no more clinging to illusions or half-truths. He flicked off the living room light and trudged to the bedroom, determined to face tomorrow with the resolution that, at the very least, he could rebuild his life from the ashes. Damon Hayes stepped out of his car, squinting against the midday sun that beat down on Fort Brookside, his new assignment after finalizing his divorce. The base sprawled across gently rolling terrain, dotted with tall pines that swayed in a warm breeze. Despite the postcard sky, Damon's mood stayed resolutely gray. He lugged a single suitcase toward a modest apartment building just outside the base perimeter where he'd arranged off-post housing. A few fellow soldiers had recommended the place for its quiet neighborhood. Quiet sounded perfect right now. No reminders of Helena, no painful flashbacks of the daughter he'd lost and then discovered he never actually had. Inside, the apartment was clean but sparse. Hardwood floors, beige walls, a small kitchenette. Damon surveyed the space, dropping his bag by the couch. He inhaled, letting the unfamiliar smell of fresh paint and lemon cleaner wash over him. A new start, he told himself. That afternoon, while unpacking a box of kitchenware, he heard a knock on his door. Opening it, he found a man in his early 30s, wearing jeans and a friendly grin. "Hey there," the man said. "I'm Travis, your next-door neighbor. Saw you carrying boxes, figured you might need a hand." Damon hesitated, then offered a polite nod. "I appreciate it. Name's Damon." Travis stepped inside, glancing around the bare living room. "Guess you just moved in, huh? Where from?" "Fort Harris. I transferred," Damon said simply, not eager to share the messy backstory of his divorce. Travis seemed to read the tension in Damon's posture and changed the subject. "So, I've got a friend you might like to meet. She's my wife's cousin, Marion Ross. She's been living in the complex a couple months. Good person to know if you're new around here. She's basically the neighborhood social coordinator." He chuckled. "Always organizing potlucks, coffee meetups." Damon forced a small smile, though part of him bristled at the idea of socializing. "Thanks. Maybe once I settle in." A few hours later, Damon was assembling a dining table he'd bought at a discount store when another soft rap sounded. Expecting Travis again, he opened the door and found himself looking at a woman with warm brown eyes and a quick, genuine smile. "Hi," she said brightly. "I'm Marion Ross. Travis told me you just moved in and could use some local intel." She held up a covered dish. "He also said you might not have groceries yet, so I brought a casserole. Hope you like chicken and broccoli." Caught off guard, Damon blinked, then managed a grateful nod. "Wow, that's thank you. I'm Damon." He stepped aside to let her in. Marion was probably in her late 30s, with shoulder-length auburn hair pulled into a low ponytail. She wore a casual blue blouse, jeans, and an air of easy confidence that put Damon slightly more at ease. Setting the casserole on his bare kitchen counter, she glanced around. "You'll want curtains. The street lamp outside is super bright at night." "I'll keep that in mind," Damon replied, a faint smirk pulling at his lips. They talked a bit. She mentioned she worked at a local marketing firm but had once been married to a soldier. They separated a few years ago, amicably, she said. Damon shared he was recently divorced too. He didn't delve into details. Marion nodded sympathetically, not pressing the subject. Before she left, Marion turned at the doorway. "Listen, if you need anything like furniture store tips or just someone to talk to, drop by. I'm in Unit 2C. She flashed a kind smile. "Welcome to Brookside Apartments, Damon Hayes." He closed the door, casserole in hand, feeling oddly lighter. A fleeting thought crossed his mind. She's nice, genuine. Maybe living here wouldn't be so bad. That evening, Damon warmed up Marion's casserole. The cozy aroma filled the apartment, an oddly comforting change from the usual takeout. As he ate alone, he couldn't help replaying her friendly demeanor. He barely knew her, but the sincerity in her eyes had been a welcome contrast to the emotional wreckage he'd left behind. Still, as night fell and the street lamp's glow bled through the window, Damon tossed and turned on his bed, old memories gnawing at him. The day's small pleasantries could only momentarily mask the ache of betrayal and loss. Yet in the darkness, he found himself silently grateful for the neighborly kindness of Marion Ross, a glimmer of warmth in a life that had felt so cold for so long. A few weeks passed in a blur of mild routine. Damon juggled his new duties at Fort Brookside paperwork, training schedules, and the occasional field exercise while steadily furnishing his apartment. True to her word, Marion popped by now and then with advice on local shops or to invite him to small neighborhood gatherings. One Friday afternoon, she knocked with a smile. "I'm heading to Cafe Green Leaf just outside the base gate. Thought you might want to join me for a quick bite. Unless you've already got plans?" Damon, who'd been flipping through a half-empty fridge, gave a wry chuckle. "My grand plan for dinner was some leftover pasta, so, yes, let's get real food." He grabbed his wallet and followed her downstairs, a slight flutter in his chest that he tried to ignore. Cafe Greenleaf was a cozy spot with brick walls and potted plants, its menu scrawled on chalkboards overhead. They snagged a booth by the window. Warm light from hanging Edison bulbs lit Marion's features, and Damon found himself actually relaxing for once. They talked about random things, her marketing projects, his adjustment to a new unit. At some point, the conversation dipped into personal territory. "So," Marion began, fiddling with the rim of her coffee cup, "Travis mentioned you came here after a tough divorce. Sorry if that's too blunt." Damon's heart tightened. He weighed how much to reveal. "No, it's okay," he said softly. "It was complicated. Let's just say I found out my marriage wasn't built on honesty." Marion's gaze reflected genuine sympathy. "I get it. My ex and I had our share of trust issues. Different from yours, I'm sure, but the heartbreak feels the same." She offered a reassuring nod. They lingered over dinner, fresh sandwiches, iced coffee, and Damon felt a faint spark of connection. It wasn't romantic fireworks or anything so dramatic, but a gentle sense of comfort that told him maybe he was allowed to laugh again, be normal again. After they finished, Marion suggested a short walk along the sidewalk. The evening air smelled of cut grass and distant honeysuckle. Streetlights cast a gentle glow as they passed small storefronts. Damon realized he was smiling an unfamiliar sensation these days. Marion glanced up at him. "You know, you don't seem as guarded as when you first arrived." He shrugged, hands tucked in his pockets. "Guess I'm still figuring out who I am without the old baggage." They paused near a bench outside a closed florist's shop. His mind flicked to the secret heartbreak he still carried. Every now and then, he was haunted by an image of a little girl with Helena's eyes, or a dream that ended in emptiness. But he couldn't explain that to Marion. Not yet. She seemed to sense his hesitation. "Hey, no pressure," she said gently, patting the bench. "We can just enjoy the breeze." Damon sat beside her, the night soft around them. He studied Marion's face in the glow of a nearby street lamp. She was pretty, sure, but more than that, there was a warmth in her presence that eased his jagged edges. At one point, their hands brushed, a small, shared moment of closeness. Damon's pulse kicked up a notch. "Am I ready for this?" he wondered, swirling with both anticipation and a slight pang of guilt. Memories of Belle lost or never truly his still clung to him like a shadow. Yet here, in the hush of a quiet street, it felt okay to hope for a new chapter. Eventually, Marion glanced at her watch. "Wow, it's late." She stood, smiling. "I had a good time, Damon." He cleared his throat, standing too. "Me too. Thanks for, everything." They walked back to their apartment building side by side. Outside her door, she hesitated, then gave him a brief, warm hug. Damon found his arms moving around her automatically, heart pounding at the unfamiliar closeness. "Good night," she whispered, slipping inside. Damon stared at the closed door for a moment, a faint swirl of emotions in his chest, hope, fear, a flicker of guilt. As he climbed the stairs to his own place, images of Belle darted through his mind again. But for the first time, they didn't entirely overshadow the present. There was room, maybe, for something new. That night, as he drifted to sleep, his dreams teetered on the edge of memory. A child's face he'd never actually seen, a name that stung like an open wound. But layered over that grief was the warmth of Marion's smile and the sense that somehow life could move forward. A crisp Saturday morning found Damon stepping into Riverside National Bank, a modern building of glass and polished floors. He needed to open a local account. His old one tied too many threads back to the life he'd left behind. The bank was bustling, a few lines forming behind cheerful tellers. At a corner desk, a man in a business casual shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, motioned Damon over. "Hi, I'm Spencer Wright," the man greeted, extending a hand. "I handle new accounts here. How can I help you today?" Damon shook his hand, noting Spencer's easygoing smile. "Major Damon Hayes. I'd like to open a checking account." "Absolutely." Spencer tapped a few keys on his computer, offering a professional grin. "Stationed at Fort Brookside, I take it?" Damon nodded, handing over his military ID. "Yes, just transferred in." While Spencer typed Damon's details, a petite brunette woman appeared. Her name tag read Fiona Wright. She placed a folder on Spencer's desk. "Honey, here's the updated form for the kids' savings program," she said, then noticed Damon. "Oh, hi. Didn't realize we had a client here." Spencer smiled up at her. "No worries, Fiona. This is Major Hayes." Turning back to Damon, he added, "My wife and I run the local accounts division together. She's the real genius behind the scenes." Fiona rolled her eyes good-naturedly, then her gaze flicked to Damon. "Welcome, Major. Any friend of Fort Brookside is a friend of ours." A moment later, she bustled away to help another client. Damon and Spencer chatted casually as they filled out forms. "So how are you liking the area?" Spencer asked, printing out some documents for signature. "It's nice," Damon replied, scanning the page. "Peaceful. Good community." As he handed the signed paperwork back, a small voice piped up from behind him. "Daddy, can I have a snack now?" Damon turned to see a young girl with bright blonde hair, maybe 6 or 7, wearing a sparkly unicorn t-shirt. She clutched a little plush toy in one hand. Her large blue eyes darted curiously to Damon. Something about her gaze made his breath hitch an odd flicker of recognition he couldn't place. Spencer's face lit up. "Eva, sweetie, I'm almost done. Sit tight for just another minute, okay?" He shot Damon an apologetic smile. "Weekends can be a juggling act. Sometimes we bring her in if the sitter isn't available." Damon forced a polite nod. "No problem." But he couldn't stop staring. Eva. The name rang in his mind with a strange resonance. Her hair was that same golden hue he'd once pictured might be Belle's, though he'd never seen any photo. It was probably coincidence. He had no reason to suspect anything. Shortly after, Damon thanked Spencer for opening his account and headed to the door. Ava's high-pitched voice followed him. "Bye, mister?" He glanced back to see her wave. Her bright smile tugged at something deep inside him. Later that day, Marion swung by his apartment. They chatted about weekend plans. She was heading to a local farmer's market. Damon decided to tag along, hoping fresh air would clear his head. They ended up strolling among booths of handmade crafts and baked goods. While Marion compared prices on organic honey, Damon noticed a familiar figure in the crowd. Spencer Wright, wearing casual jeans, accompanied by Fiona and their daughter Eva. The little girl hopped excitedly from booth to booth, hugging that same plush toy. "Fancy seeing them again," Damon murmured to Marion, gesturing discreetly. "That's the banker who helped me earlier." "Oh, Spencer and Fiona, they're sweet," Marion replied. "I've seen them at some community events. Their daughter, Eva, is adorable." Damon observed the girl from a distance, heart unexpectedly pounding. "Why do I feel so uneasy?" He shook off the sensation, telling himself he was just overreacting to blonde hair and big eyes. Yet as they left the market, Damon couldn't shake the unsettling curiosity. Something about Eva reminded him of Belle, though he'd never truly known Belle, only the idea of her. He rationalized it was a coincidence. Helena's child had been adopted far away, presumably. The odds were astronomical that this local family's daughter had any link to Helena's secret. But that evening, in a moment of restlessness, Damon found himself rereading old notes from the fiasco with Helena. He'd once glimpsed partial references to an adoption date and location, but never pieced it together. He'd been too blindsided by the affair's reveal. What if no, he told himself, shutting the folder. Don't chase ghosts. Still, as he lay in bed that night, The echo of Eva's bright greeting lingered in his mind. A whisper of fear, or maybe hope, crawled up his spine. Could this child be? He buried his face in the pillow, dismissing the notion as absurd. And yet the thought refused to die. 2 days later, Damon was reorganizing boxes in the spare room when he stumbled on a familiar file, the remnants of Helena's adoption papers. He'd kept them tucked away, telling himself he needed closure. Now, with Eva's face hovering in his thoughts, he felt compelled to look again. His phone pinged with a text from Marion. "Running errands? Dinner later?" He typed a quick, "Sure," but his attention was riveted to the documents in front of him. He flipped through the pages, scanning the lines that mentioned child's birth name, Belle West, and adoption completed in Washington State. No names of adoptive parents were listed, only the vague note that it was a sealed adoption. Washington State. I'm in Washington now. His pulse thudded. The timing of it all. Belle would be around 6 or 7. Ava was about that age. He inhaled sharply, pushing aside a wave of disbelief. Though no direct evidence linked Eva to Belle, the pieces gnawed at Damon. If Eva truly was Belle, the child he once grieved, even if she wasn't biologically his, didn't he have some moral obligation to know the truth? Or was it better to leave well enough alone, let her live happily with a loving family? Late that afternoon, Damon found himself flipping through files on his laptop, searching for anything referencing adoption records in the Fort Brookside region. The data was largely confidential. He tried not to think about how he might be intruding on an innocent family's life. "I just need clarity," he told himself. When he met Marion for dinner at a local pizza place, she noticed his distracted air. "You okay?" she asked, sipping her soda. He mustered a half-hearted nod. "Just a work thing on my mind," he lied. He couldn't drag her into this swirl of confusion. Not yet. She reached across the table, briefly touching his hand. "Don't let it eat you up. I'm here if you need someone to vent to." Her warm gaze made his chest tighten with guilt. She deserves honesty, but not now. That night, once alone, Damon sat at his kitchen table, the adoption papers spread out under the glow of a single lamp. He found an address for the adoption agency's main office in Seattle. Should I call them? They likely wouldn't divulge sealed records. And what if he was wrong about Eva? Mid-thought, a memory flashed. The day he discovered Belle wasn't his biological daughter. How that heartbreak had fused into anger. Yet there'd also been a flicker of protective instinct. He'd lost the chance to decide if he wanted to be a father figure, even if not by blood. Now the possibility that Belle lived a block away in a normal, happy household made him tremble with conflicting emotions. By morning, he'd made up his mind to gather more facts. Carefully, he picked up a hairbrush left behind by Eva when she visited the bank's desk. She'd fiddled with it, then set it aside in a waiting area. Spencer had waved it off, saying she had many. Damon had absent-mindedly grabbed it, meaning to return it, but never got the chance. 2 or 3 strands of blonde hair were caught in the bristles. Steeling himself, Damon dialed the private DNA lab in Seattle, the same one he'd used before. The technician, Margie, recognized his name. "Major Hayes? Another test?" "Yes," he said quietly. "I have a hair sample, and I'll need it compared to the maternal DNA on file from Helena West." He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I just need to confirm something." Margie's voice held a hint of concern. "We can do that, sir. Send it in or bring it by. Results in about 2 weeks, give or take." Damon thanked her and hung up, heart pounding. The decision felt huge, terrifying. If Eva turned out to be Belle, he'd be faced with the choice of tearing her safe world apart or silently walking away. Is it even my place? She wasn't his biologically, but for years he'd believed her to be his daughter. By noon, Damon had sealed the hair sample in a labeled envelope, intending to drive it to Seattle himself. Before leaving, he fired off a text to Marion. "Might be out of town for a day or 2. Something came up. I'll explain later." He lingered at the apartment door, wrestling with doubt. Was he insane for going down this path? Yet the image of Ava's inquisitive blue eyes haunted him. With a determined breath, he locked up and headed for his car. "No turning back now," he told himself, starting the engine. "I need the truth, whatever it costs." Damon Hayes stared at the sealed envelope from the DNA lab, heart thudding as he stood in his kitchen. After days of anxious waiting, the results comparing Eva Wright's hair sample to Helena's old genetic profile were finally here. If Eva is Belle, he thought, pulse racing, that changes everything. He tore the envelope open, eyes flying over the printed lines. Match confirmed. Eva's maternal DNA consistent with Helena West. The words might as well have been written in neon. Damon swallowed hard, a swirl of adrenaline, relief, and dread. So it's true. Eva is Belle. Before he could fully process, a knock sounded at the door. He hastily shoved the report into a nearby drawer. Opening the door, he found Marion Ross, smiling in her usual warm way until she caught sight of his pale face. "Damon, are you okay?" she asked, stepping inside. She carried a bag of fresh fruit and pastries, apparently dropping by for a casual visit. He tried to compose himself. Yeah, just had a lot on my mind." Marion's eyes flicked around the kitchen. "You look like you saw a ghost." "I might as well have." Damon exhaled, leaning on the counter. "Listen, there's someone you should know about." He hesitated, feeling a pang of guilt for dragging her into his tangled past. But the words spilled out. "I haven't been fully open about my ex-wife, or the child we once thought was ours." Marion set down the bag. "You mentioned Helena, but never much about a child. Is this about that Belle, right? The name you muttered in your sleep once." He blinked. "I muttered Belle's name." "Yes, Belle. Let's sit, okay?" He led her to the small dining table. Over the next several minutes, he revealed the entire painful story, how Helena faked the baby's death, the truth that Belle wasn't biologically his, and the shocking realization that Belle had been given up for adoption. Marion's face shifted from confusion to sympathy to shock. "Oh my God," she murmured when he finished. "That's unbelievably cruel of Helena." Damon's throat tightened. "There's more. I think I found Belle. She's living here under a new name, Eva Wright. Her adoptive parents and I just confirmed it via DNA." Marion's eyes went wide. "Eva? The little girl we've seen around, the banker's daughter?" Damon nodded, silently handing her the newly opened lab report. She skimmed the lines, lips parted in astonishment. "Wow. I don't even know what to say." Silence settled. Marion slowly placed the paper down. "Damon, if she's happily adopted, what do you plan on doing?" "That's the part I can't figure out," he said, raking a hand through his hair. "Ava's not biologically mine, but for years I grieved her, then found out she existed after all. She's only 7. Do I just barge in and upend her life?" Marion watched him intently. "You could talk to her adoptive parents," she suggested gently. "They deserve to know, at least. I mean, she's Helena's daughter. If there are any medical or emotional needs, they might want that info." Damon exhaled shakily. "I'm terrified. Spencer and Fiona Wright are good people. Would they blame me for this bombshell? Eva's so happy. I don't want to hurt her. But lying by omission doesn't feel right either." Marion reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Hiding it won't fix anything. The truth always finds its way out." She paused, a rueful smile. "I'm living proof of that. Secrets tore my first marriage apart." Damon nodded, heart pounding. "I'll do it. I'll tell them. Just I need the right moment." Marion's warm presence steadied him, though panic still buzzed beneath his calm facade. She rose, scanning his tense expression. "I'm here, whatever you decide." Before leaving, she spotted something on the counter, a file folder labeled Belle West Adoption. Marion's eyes flicked to his, asking silent permission. Damon nodded. She opened it, glimpsing Helena's forged documents, the timeline of the adoption. "Helena really lied about the baby's death," Marion whispered, anger tinging her voice. "Unbelievable." Damon's jaw clenched. "She did. She told me so many lies." He forced a shaky breath. "But I can't dwell on that. Right now, I need to figure out how to handle Eva's reality." Marion closed the folder gently. "You'll do the right thing. I can see it in you, Damon. Just promise me you'll talk to the Wrights soon." He gave a small nod. "I promise." A sense of determination settled over him as Marion left. Staring at the lab results one more time, He realized his heartbreak was no longer personal. It involved an innocent child who had no clue about her birth mother's deceit. I won't let Helena's lies define Eva's future, he resolved. I owe it to her, even if she never knows me as anything more than Damon Hayes. 2 days after revealing his secret to Marion, Damon Hayes paced his living room with a phone clutched tightly. A storm rattled outside, heavy rain beating against the windows. I can't delay this any longer, he thought. Helena has to know I found Belle. Or Eva. Steeling himself, he dialed Helena's number the first time he'd attempted contact in months. The line rang so long he nearly gave up, but then a click. A hesitant voice came through. Hello? His breath caught. Helena, it's Damon. Silence. He pictured her shock. Damon, she finally said, sounding unsettled. I didn't expect you to call. Is everything okay? Rain thundered, matching the rush of blood in his ears. No, not exactly, he replied curtly. I found Belle, she gasped, an audible tremor. What do you mean you found Belle? How? His anger surged, but he fought to keep his tone steady. Her adoptive parents moved here. She goes by Ava now. I recognize certain details. I confirmed it with a DNA test. He clenched his jaw. You lied about her being gone, but that's old news. The point is, I know where she is. A shaky exhale crackled over the line. Oh God, Damon, I never meant for this to... He cut her off. Save it. The question is, do you want to be involved? Because if so, we're going to do this carefully. Ava doesn't know anything yet. Helena's voice wavered. I'm married now. Colton West. He knows some of what happened, but not all. A pause. Does Eva's family want me around, or do they even know? Not yet, Damon said. I haven't told them the details, but I'm going to. They deserve the truth. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in a stark glare. If you want a chance to meet your daughter, you'd better come to terms with the mess you created. He heard Helena sniffle. I'm so sorry, Damon. My guilt this weight has been crushing me for years. I was so terrified that if you knew, you'd hate me even more. Damon's throat tightened. Hate doesn't begin to describe it. Then he took a measured breath. But look, I'm not calling to rehash the past. It's about Eva. She's 7. She's happy. I refuse to let you hurt her again with half-truths. Through soft sobbing, Helena managed. You're right. I'll come. Just let me know when and where. I need to face this. Damon's emotions churned. Part of him wanted to scream at her, but another part felt a grudging relief. Fine. I'll figure out a time once I talk to the Wrights. But no drama, Helena. You come as Belle's birth mother, that's all. No more lies. Her voice cracked. I understand. Damon, thank you for giving me a chance. He ended the call, heart hammering. For a moment he just stood there, the storm raging outside reflecting the tempest in his chest. She's willing to show up, he told himself. Let's hope it's for the right reasons. An hour later, Marion dropped by to check on him, umbrella dripping at the doorstep. He recounted the call, tension knotting his shoulders. She listened quietly. When he finished, Marion said, At least Helena is cooperating. That might help Ava process things. She has a birth mother who regrets giving her up, and an adoptive family who loves her. Damon dragged a hand down his face. I just can't shake the fear that Helena's presence will hurt Ava. She's so young, how do we explain everything without shattering her world? Marion settled a hand on his arm. Ava's stronger than you think. Kids can handle more honesty than adults give them credit for. The Wrights will decide how to break the news gently. She paused. And you'll be there to support them if it gets rough. He studied Marion's kind expression, a surge of gratitude filling him. Thanks for being in my corner. She offered a small smile. You're not alone, Damon. We'll get through this, one careful step at a time. Outside, the storm abated to a gentle patter. Damon glanced at the phone on the kitchen counter, as though half expecting Helena to call back. But no ring came. Maybe that's good, he decided, ushering Marion into the living room for a quieter evening. They watched the raindrops slide down the window, hearts heavy with anticipation of the next step telling Spencer and Fiona Wright that the birth mother they'd never expected to see again was ready to reappear. A week later, Damon parked outside Fort Ironwood's old records building. He'd pulled strings to dig up details on Ellis Grant, the mysterious blonde man Helena mentioned as Belle's real father. Damon wanted to ensure no surprises if Ellis suddenly showed up. If Eva's real father is out there, the Wrights deserve to know. He stepped into a dim corridor lined with metal filing cabinets and flickering fluorescent lights. Captain Russell, an administrative officer Damon had known from earlier days, greeted him with a nod. "Major Hayes, right? Heard you were looking for an Ellis Grant's file." "Yes," Damon confirmed quietly. "I was stationed here around the same time as him, years ago. We lost track. I need any official info you can share." Captain Russell scanned the computer, tapping furiously at the keys. Grant, Ellis Grant, civilian consultant, mid-grade security clearance, looks like he left the position abruptly about 7 years back. Damon's pulse quickened. 7 years, right around Belle's birth. Did he resign? Transfer? Russell frowned. It's murky. Some rumors about financial misconduct. Then he apparently took a contract job in the Middle East. Afghanistan or maybe Qatar. No official rehire or re-entry into the system. She leaned back, sighing. There's no new record. He's basically off the grid. Off the grid. Damon felt a strange mix of relief and pity. If Ellis was gone, possibly for good, maybe he couldn't complicate Eva's life further. Any sign he's returned stateside? Damon pressed. Russell shook her head. None that I see. Sorry, that's all we have. She paused, her voice dropping sympathetically. You sure you want to chase this guy, Major? He gave a rueful half-smile. I'm not chasing him, just tying up loose ends. Leaving the records building, Damon exhaled the tension knotting his chest. If Ellis Grant was involved in some shady business, perhaps he'd never step forward as Eva's father, and maybe that was for the best. Eva doesn't need that kind of chaos, he told himself. She has a stable family now. Still, the pit in his stomach reminded him that someone fathered Eva biologically. He looked down at the folder of minimal notes, nothing more than a ghost's trail. Helena won't find him either. That evening, Damon returned to his apartment, weary from the emotional weight. Marion stopped by with takeout, noticing the shadows under his eyes. You find anything on Ellis? She asked between bites of pad thai. He explained the missing puzzle pieces. Marion sighed. Well, at least you know he's not likely to turn up claiming Eva. That might spare her more upheaval. Damon stared at the noodles on his plate, appetite lost. I keep thinking about how none of this is Eva's fault. She never asked for Helena as a mother or Ellis as a father. She just ended up in this crazy situation. Marion reached across the table, her palm warm against the back of his hand. But now she has a good family with Spencer and Fiona. That's something. And you're trying to do right by her. He managed a grateful nod. It helps to have Marion's unwavering support. Later alone, Damon rifled through his notes, lines of swirling confusion about Ellis Grant. The man was effectively a dead end. Helena, riddled with guilt, was about to meet Eva. The Wrights were clueless about the storm heading their way. He pulled out a small journal where he'd begun recording his thoughts advice from a base counselor who suggested writing as therapy. Scribbling. Ellis, MIA, possibly criminal. Helena, remorseful, uncertain. Eva, innocent, adorable. I must protect her from drama. Must talk to Wright soon. He closed the journal and gazed at the faint reflection of himself in the window. Protect. That word echoed. This child was never his by blood, but he'd once believed otherwise, and a protective instinct still pulsed in his chest. If Ellis never returned, that left Helena as the only threat to Eva's stable life unless Damon mishandled the truth. A message lit up his phone. Spencer invites you to Sunday barbecue at the Wright's place. Interested? Damon's breath caught. It was a simple, neighborly gesture, but ironically perfect timing. He typed back, Sure, I'll be there. He set the phone aside, nerves fluttering. Sunday. That might be the day he finally told them. Tension pulsed in his temples. But if he waited any longer, it would only feel more like a betrayal. They deserve honesty, even if it scares the hell out of me. Rolling his shoulders, he pushed away from the desk. Another step forward, albeit a terrifying one. For Eva, he silently affirmed, flicking off the lamp. A bright Sunday afternoon found Damon stepping onto the Wrights' lawn, a plate of homemade brownies in hand. The smell of grilled burgers filled the air, while kids' laughter drifted from a small, inflatable bounce house in the corner of the yard. Spencer waved him over, wearing an apron that read Grill Master. "Major Hayes," Spencer greeted cheerfully, though Damon had told him multiple times to drop the rank off duty. "Glad you could come, and you brought dessert nice." Fiona approached, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "Hey, Damon, thanks for coming. Eva's around back playing with some friends. Make yourself at home." Damon mustered a friendly smile, though his chest felt tight. He spotted Ava in a pink t-shirt, laughing as she bounced with a couple other neighborhood kids. She looks so carefree, he thought, a pang hitting him. Am I about to destroy that innocence? After about half an hour of small talk, neighbors complimenting the brownies, Spencer proudly showing off his new grill, Damon finally caught Fiona's eye and signaled he needed to speak privately. She and Spencer exchanged a curious glance but led him inside, away from the bustle. They settled in the living room, the hum of conversation drifting through closed windows. Spencer folded his arms, concerned. "Everything okay, Damon?" Damon inhaled, forcing calm. "First, I want to say I respect you both a lot. You're wonderful parents to Ava." He cleared his throat. "But there's something I need to tell you about her birth mother." Fiona's eyes widened, then darted to Spencer. "Her birth mother? Wait, how do you—" Damon ran a hand over his face, heart pounding. "I discovered a connection. Ava's birth mother is someone I know, Helena West. She—" He paused, voice tight with emotion. "She gave Eva up shortly after she was born, under very dishonest circumstances. And I only recently realized Eva is that child." Spencer blinked, confusion etched in every line of his face. Are you certain?" Damon nodded, handing over a folded DNA report from his pocket. "I tested strands of Eva's hair against Helena's old sample. It's a match, 100% maternal link." Fiona's mouth parted, a tremor in her voice. "Oh my God, but we were told the birth mother wanted no contact, that she— Are you saying she's back?" Damon exhaled a shaky breath. "Yes." "Helena regrets what she did. She might want to meet Eva." He raised a hand as they both tensed. "I'm not pushing for it, just giving you the facts. Eva is biologically Helena's, and Helena might try to come forward." Silence stretched. Fiona pressed a palm over her forehead. Spencer paced, occasionally glancing out the window where Eva still giggled with her friends. Finally, he spoke, voice tight. "We love Eva more than anything. She's our daughter, Damon." Damon nodded fervently. "I know, and I respect that. I'm not here to undermine your parenthood, but I couldn't keep this a secret. If there's a chance Helena reappears, you need to be prepared." Fiona swallowed, blinking tears. "Eva's only 7. How do we explain this without traumatizing her?" Damon's chest clenched. "That's your call. And if you choose not to let Helena near her, I understand. Legally, your rights are absolute. I just felt you deserved honesty." Spencer exchanged a long look with Fiona. A swirl of emotion flickered between them, love, fear, protectiveness. Finally, Spencer spoke quietly. "We've always known she'd ask about her birth parents eventually. We figured we'd cross that bridge when she was older." Fiona's voice trembled. "But it seems that bridge is here now." Damon placed a gentle hand on Fiona's arm. "She's a bright, resilient kid. With your support, she'll handle the truth. The question is, do you want to meet Helena first, or talk to Eva before contacting her?" Outside, the sound of kids shrieking in delight floated through the window, punctuating the heavy moment. Fiona dabbed her eyes. "Let's talk to Eva carefully. Then if she wants to meet Helena, we'll arrange it. We don't want to force anything on her." Spencer nodded, gaze somber. "Agreed. We owe her honesty, but we'll do it gently. Damon, can you be there? You seem to have a stake in this, emotionally." Damon's throat tightened. "Of course. Whatever you need." A faint knock on the doorframe made them turn. Eva poked her head in, blinking. "Mom? Dad? Are you okay? Why is everyone so serious?" Fiona plastered on a brave smile. "It's all right, honey. We're just talking grown-up stuff. You having fun out there?" Eva nodded, still suspicious. Then she spotted Damon and waved. Hi, Mr. Hayes. Come play with us soon? He swallowed, returning her wave. Sure, Ava. Be right there. As the girl's footsteps receded, the three adults exchanged tense looks. The next conversation, the one that would change Ava's life, would happen soon. They all felt it like a tremor in the air. Damon braced himself for the storm they were about to unleash, silently praying Eva's bright spirit would endure. The late afternoon sun cast soft, golden rays through the living room windows of Spencer and Fiona Wright's home. Damon Hayes stood near the couch, heart pounding as the Wrights ushered a hesitant Ava inside. The little girl clung to a small, plush rabbit, glancing around with wide eyes. Marion Ross stood at Damon's side, quietly lending her support. In the corner, Helena West hovered, looking equally unsettled. She wore a plain blouse and jeans, far from the confident style she once flaunted. Her eyes were red-rimmed, betraying sleepless nights spent dreading this moment. Fiona knelt to Eva's level. Sweetheart, we've told you there's someone special here who knew you when you were just a tiny baby. Fiona's voice trembled, but she forced a gentle smile. Her name is Helena. Eva peeked up at Helena, curiosity shining. Mom said you're my birth mommy. A wave of emotion crossed Helena's face. She clutched a small drawstring pouch in her hands. Yes, Eva, she whispered, voice nearly cracking. I'm your birth mother, and I've missed you so much. Tears gathered in her eyes. Damon swallowed hard. He caught Spencer exchanging a glance with Fiona, both worried yet determined to let Eva lead. Marion touched Damon's arm, silently encouraging him to stay strong. Eva eyed Helena for a long moment. But you didn't want me before, she asked, her tone innocent but cutting. Helena's lip quivered. I made mistakes, really big mistakes. I was scared, and I lied to a lot of people. She exhaled shakily, kneeling so her gaze met Ava's. It wasn't because I didn't want you. I was selfish. I did a terrible thing, and I'm so sorry. Silence fell, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioner. Ava clutched her bunny, fidgeting, then inched closer. She stared at Helena's trembling hands. Did you bring me that? She pointed to the pouch. Helena blinked, remembering. Oh, yes. She opened it to reveal a small bracelet woven from delicate pink threads. When you were born, the hospital gave me this little band with your footprints. I saved them before I gave you up. I wanted you to have it. Her voice faltered with emotion. Ava glanced up at Fiona and Spencer, seeking reassurance. They each nodded softly, letting her decide. With tentative steps, Eva reached out and touched the bracelet. It's pretty, she whispered, eyes flicking to Helena's tear-streaked face. A wave of relief and heartbreak mingled in Helena's expression. Thank you, she said, voice breaking. She set it gently in Eva's palm. I understand if you're mad or confused. The little girl blinked, tears threatening. I'm not mad, just I have a mom and dad. They love me. She cast a worried glance at Fiona and Spencer, who offered her reassuring smiles. I don't want to leave them, she added, voice trembling. Helena's tears spilled. Oh, honey, no one's taking you away, she murmured, shaking her head. They're your real parents in every way that counts. Her gaze flicked to Spencer and Fiona, gratitude seeping through her grief. I'm just the woman who gave birth to you. Ava processed this in a childlike way, hugging her bunny tighter. So you're like the tummy mommy? Her innocent phrase drew soft smiles from the adults. Exactly, Helena breathed, relief crossing her face. If you'll let me, I'd like to be someone who cares about you, even from a distance. Fiona's eyes swam with tears as she knelt beside Eva. We talked about this, remember? You can ask Helena questions if you want to. And if you're ready, sometimes she might visit, or we can write letters. Ava considered, then turned back to Helena. Are you going to go away again? Helena shot Damon a pained look before answering softly. I won't stay here at the Wrights' house, but I promise I'll never hide from you again. If you want to see me, I'll come. Or if you don't, I'll wait until you're ready. The child nodded solemnly, clutching the bracelet. Okay. Her voice was small, but she didn't cry. Instead, she stepped forward and, much to everyone's surprise, wrapped her arms around Helena in a hesitant hug. Tears flooded Helena's cheeks. "Ava, I'm so sorry," she whispered, pressing her face into the top of Ava's golden hair. "Thank you for letting me." Her words broke off in sobs. Spencer cleared his throat, wiping his own eyes. Fiona blinked back tears. Damon felt his chest constrict, recalling how he once thought he was this child's father. Now he watched a new bond forming, fragile but real. Eventually, Eva pulled back, returning to Fiona's side. "That's all for now," she mumbled, nestling close to her adoptive mother. Fiona stroked her hair gently. Marion discreetly handed Helena a tissue. Damon caught Marion's eye, gratitude blooming in him. She gave a subtle nod. "We're here for the child first," her expression said. After a moment of collectiveness, Helena rose unsteadily. She glanced around the room, voice trembling. "I'm so thankful you're taking care of her, truly. I'll leave my number, and I'm here whenever Eva wants, but only if you agree." Spencer nodded, stepping forward to shake Helena's hand, awkward but sincere. "We appreciate your respect." Helena turned to Damon, her features awash in conflicting emotions. "And Damon, thank you for making this happen." He just nodded, swallowing the knot in his throat. As Helena prepared to go, Eva lifted her bracelet, eyes flicking with childlike curiosity. "You can come again sometime?" she asked softly. Helena gave a watery smile. "Anytime you'll have me, sweetie." In the quiet that followed her exit, Eva asked to go to her room, needing space to think. Fiona followed, leaving Spencer, Damon, and Marion in the living room, all sharing a collective breath of relief. The first meeting was raw, emotional, but maybe it had opened a door toward healing. An hour after Helena's tearful introduction to Eva, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with swirls of orange and pink. Damon Hayes stood on the Wright's back patio, staring at the sloping lawn. A few leftover decorations, a colorful pinwheel, some foam balls littered the grass where Ava often played. Behind him, the screen door slid open. He turned to see Helena stepping out, arms folded, eyes red but composed. Their gazes met, heavy with unspoken words. "Mind if we talk?" she asked, voice tentative. He gestured toward a small bench near a potted hydrangea. "Sure." They sat in uneasy silence, the warm summer breeze ruffling Helena's dark hair. Finally, Damon spoke first, low and measured. "You did okay in there. That couldn't have been easy." Helena let out a shaky laugh. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done." My heart nearly stopped when she asked if I'd go away again. She glanced at the house, where Eva was inside with Spencer and Fiona. "I'm grateful they let me see her at all." Damon nodded, running a hand over his face. "Eva's a strong kid, but this is just the beginning. She'll have questions why you left, who her father was." His voice took on an edge. "And speaking of father..." Helena looked down, fiddling with a stray thread on her sleeve. "I know, Damon. I should have told you about Ellis from the start. I should have told you everything." She inhaled shakily. "I was so afraid you'd hate me if you knew. So I tried to hide it all." His chest tightened with anger that had simmered for years. "I've spent so long hating you, Helena," he said, eyes flashing. "You stole my right to choose whether I could love that child, even if she wasn't mine by blood." She bit her lip, tears pooling. "I know. And I did it out of cowardice. I was pregnant and realized the baby wasn't yours. I panicked, thinking you'd divorce me on the spot. So I told that horrific lie about losing her. Then I ran off, gave her up for adoption in secret. I told you she died." He clenched his fists, the old fury surging. "You let me grieve a child for months, all for your convenience." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I won't justify it. I was terrible. I only hope you can see how much I regret it." Silence pressed down on them, thick with bitterness and buried sorrow. Finally, Damon exhaled, forcing himself to steady. "I lived in a nightmare, Helena, mourning a baby who wasn't even lost. That was my personal hell." She sniffed. "And I've lived in guilt for 7 years, terrified each time I thought about her. I'd look at kids in the grocery store and wonder if she was happy." Her eyes brimmed again. "At least now I know she's safe." Damon studied her, detecting a sincerity in her tears he hadn't seen before. Part of him wanted to keep raging, but it felt pointless. What's done is done, he told himself. At least Eva has a bright future with the Wrights. That's what matters. Not you, not me. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, they're wonderful parents. Then her gaze flicked up, searching his face. What about us, Damon? Is there any chance you'll forgive me someday? He swallowed, recalling every betrayal, every sleepless night. I've come to realize hate only poisons me. After losing everything, I want to move on. You and I were done as a couple, obviously. But for Eva's sake, I won't keep fueling resentment. I just need you to be honest from here on out. Helena's shoulders sagged in relief. I can do that. If Eva wants to see me, I'll be truthful. No more lies. She hesitated, voice quivering. Thank you for letting me meet her. You could have stayed silent. He forced a small nod, eyes drifting to the horizon. I did it for Eva, not for you. Then, in a quieter tone, but maybe a little for me too. Closure, you know? She sniffed and managed the faintest smile. Closure. She offered her hand hesitantly. After a heartbeat of hesitation, Damon shook it, a gesture heavy with old wounds, but also with final acceptance. They rose from the bench, the last rays of sunlight catching on the dew in the grass. Helena wiped her face and whispered, I guess I should go. She glanced at the back door. Should I say goodbye? Damon shrugged, voice gruff. Better let the Wrights decide. I'll pass along any messages. Helena nodded, walking across the patio. Before slipping inside to gather her purse, she paused, turning. Damon, I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. He looked away, blinking back a sting in his eyes. I know. Moments later, he watched her drive off, the taillights disappearing into the twilight. Closing his eyes, he took a deep breath, anguish, relief, and strange emptiness swirling in his chest. Their final confrontation was done, and though fresh scars remained, maybe now they could all begin healing at last. The following week, the Wright household felt like it balanced on a razor's edge. Eva vacillated between her usual bright cheer and moments of quiet introspection. Spencer and Fiona tiptoed around her feelings, checking in gently, while Damon Hayes and Marion Ross often stopped by to show support. One evening, after dinner, Eva invited Damon to sit on the porch swing with her. Fiona nodded encouragement, so he joined the little girl outside, the early summer sky painted with orange streaks. Eva hugged her plush bunny, eyes downcast. Mr. Hayes, you were there when my birth mommy came, right? He nodded softly. I was. She bit her lip. So, you know her really well? Damon hesitated. I knew her a long time ago. She's changed since then. But yes, I do. Eva played with the bunny's ear, voice small. Why did she give me away? She said she was scared, but was it because I was bad? A pang struck Damon's heart. No, Eva, absolutely not. He scooted closer, meeting her gaze. You are not bad. Helena made mistakes because of her own fears. It had nothing to do with you. She blinked back tears, then whispered, Mommy Fiona and Daddy Spencer said I can still stay with them, that I never have to leave. Right? Damon's throat tightened. They're your real parents, Ava. No one can take that away. He swallowed. But Helena is your birth mother. She's sorry. You get to decide how much of her you want in your life, okay? Eva nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I like my life now. I have friends and I like my room. I don't want anything to change. He put an arm gently around her shoulders. It doesn't have to change, sweetheart. Talking to Helena doesn't mean leaving your home. It might just mean getting to know where you came from. She sniffled, leaning against his side. I'm scared if I see her more. Something bad will happen, like she'll take me away. A quiet tremor ran through her small frame. He sighed, glancing out at the darkening sky. She can't take you. Spencer and Fiona are your legal parents and they adore you. That's the law and it's the truth. You're safe, Eva. Silence followed, broken only by the soft chirp of crickets. Eventually, Eva wiped her tears. I still want to stay with Mom and Dad. But maybe I can see Helena sometimes? Her voice wavered with uncertainty. She brought me a pretty bracelet. I liked it. Damon mustered a smile. That's your call, and they'll respect it. We all just want you happy. She nodded, pensive. Okay. I'll tell Mom and Dad I'm not ready to be around Helena a lot, but maybe sometimes. Just then, Fiona appeared at the door, concern on her face. Ava, are you okay? Ava stood, hugging her bunny. Yes, Mommy, I'm okay. I just made a decision. Fiona walked over, brushing a hand over Eva's hair. We're listening, sweet pea. With a trembling breath, Eva announced, I love you and Daddy. You're my real parents forever. But I want to see Helena sometimes. She said she's sorry, so maybe I can forgive her a little. Tears welled in Fiona's eyes as she wrapped Eva in a fierce hug. We support you, honey. We'll go slow at your pace. Spencer appeared behind Fiona, nodding in agreement. Anytime it feels like too much, you let us know. Relief mingled with lingering sadness on Damon's face. In that moment, Eva's strength shone brighter than all the adult turmoil surrounding her. Marion, who had joined them quietly, laid a gentle hand on Damon's shoulder. He turned, offering her a grateful look. So much of this journey had left him raw, but watching Ava's grace stirred hope. Later that night, as Damon prepared to leave, Ava slipped him a small handmade card. On it, a clumsy crayon drawing depicted a happy family, Spencer, Fiona, herself, and a smaller figure labeled Damon. She'd also drawn a separate figure to the side with the caption, Helena? Accompanied by a question mark. Damon's throat tightened. Thank you, Eva. This means a lot. She shrugged shyly. You're nice. You helped me understand stuff. He ruffled her hair gently, then said goodnight. The card in his hand felt heavier than it looked, a testament to the child's willingness to accept people, even amid confusion. On his drive home, Damon replayed her words. I want to see Helena sometimes. Ava's choice was a step forward, an attempt at forging her own path between love and uncertainty, and he couldn't be prouder of her resilience. 6 months later, a bright Saturday morning dawned on the Wrights' backyard, festooned with colorful balloons and a makeshift arch of ribbons. Friends and neighbors chatted, sipping lemonade as they gathered to celebrate Ava's kindergarten graduation ceremony from her local elementary. Technically, it was a simple school milestone, but Spencer and Fiona made it a big event because they wanted Ava to feel special and loved. Damon Hayes stood by the fence, watching Eva dash across the lawn in her child-sized cap, giggling with her classmates. The crisp springtime air smelled of fresh grass and hope. Beside him, Marion Ross brushed back a strand of her auburn hair. She leaned in and murmured, She looks so happy, doesn't she? He nodded, his chest tight with a mixture of gratitude and lingering wonder. So much had transpired in the past year, lies, truths, heartbreak, and unexpected healing. Yet here was Ava, beaming with childlike joy, wearing a big grin that lit up everyone around her. Fiona waved them over, so Damon and Marion stepped closer to join the small circle of spectators. Helena West was also there, standing awkwardly a few feet away near Colton West, her new husband, who offered polite nods to Spencer and Fiona. Helena's posture indicated lingering guilt, but she tried to maintain composure, eyes tracking Eva's every movement with quiet awe. Hey, Helena said softly when Damon approached. I am glad you came. She gestured to Marion politely. Both of you. Marion offered a kind smile. We wouldn't miss it. Ava soon noticed the cluster of adults and trotted over, her bright eyes dancing. Look! I got a certificate! She thrust it into Fiona's hands, then beamed at Helena. I did good in reading and math. Helena knelt, voice tremulous with pride. That's wonderful, sweetie. You've grown so much since... She paused, swallowing tears. I'm proud of you. Colton stepped forward, giving Ava an encouraging thumbs-up, though he mostly hovered near Helena, sensing her emotions. Spencer cleared his throat, voice brimming with fatherly pride. Today's all about our girl's achievement. She's officially ready for first grade. He turned to Helena and Colton, adding warmly, Thanks for coming to support her. Helena nodded, eyes misty. I appreciate the invitation, truly. In the past months, she'd visited Eva occasionally under Spencer and Fiona's watchful eyes. The relationship remained tentative but positive, guided by Ava's comfort level. Just then, Damon felt a tug on his sleeve. Ava, smile wide, grabbed his hand. Take a picture with me, Mr. Hayes. His heart softened. Of course. Marion kindly offered to snap the photo. Damon crouched beside Eva, who flashed a huge grin, her cap slightly askew. The camera clicked, capturing a moment Damon never thought he'd be part of, standing next to the daughter he once believed lost forever, celebrating her little triumph. After a round of pictures, Spencer tapped a glass with a spoon, drawing attention. "Everyone, thanks for being here. We know Eva's just finishing kindergarten, but hey, any excuse for a party, right?" Light laughter rippled through the group. "We're thankful for all the love and support she's received, especially from those who joined our family under unusual circumstances." His gaze swept over Damon, Marion, Helena, and Colton. "It's been a challenging road, but seeing Ava smile like this makes it worth every hurdle." He raised his plastic cup in a toast. To Eva's bright future and to family, however it's formed. A soft chorus of "Hear, hear" followed. Eva giggled, hugging her plush bunny that still accompanied her everywhere. Fiona dabbed at her eyes, smiling through tears. Helena quietly mouthed, "Thank you" to Spencer. As festivities wound down, Damon and Marion found themselves near the fence again, watching Eva chase a balloon with a friend. She looked up, waving, and Damon waved back, heart warm. He felt Marion slip her hand into his. "Proud of her?" she teased gently. He nodded, voice thick. "Yeah, and proud of how far we've all come." He cast a glance at Helena, talking quietly with Fiona, no tension, just cautious civility. Then at Spencer, offering a hamburger to Colton. It felt surreal, but in a good way. Marion squeezed his hand. "What about you, Damon? Where do you go from here?" He smiled softly, meeting her gaze. "Forward. I've got a new post lined up still here at Fort Brookside. And you're not planning to move, right?" She grinned. "Nope. My marketing job's solid. I guess you're stuck with me." Damon chuckled. "Lucky me." Then he added more earnestly, I'm happy, Marion. For the first time in years, I feel like the shadows aren't so heavy." They shared a brief, gentle kiss, tasteful and modest enough not to violate any sense of decorum, just a sign of affection. Then they turned back to watch Ava run into Helena's arms for a quick, shy hug before darting off again. Damon inhaled the crisp air, feeling the promise of a new dawn beyond the horizon. As the last balloon drifted on the breeze and the party guests began to disperse, Damon knew their story was far from simple. But in this moment, hope reigned. Eva was safe, loved by two families in her own unique way. He and Helena had laid old ghosts to rest. And with Marion by his side, a new chapter beckoned, one defined by honesty, resilience, and the quiet, profound possibility of healing after betrayal.